The world of Xylos Prime was a tapestry of wild, untamed beauty, a verdant jewel sparkling faintly in the periphery of known human space. Its dense, bioluminescent forests whispered ancient secrets to the persistent, warm winds, and its sprawling, crystal-clear rivers carved pathways through landscapes untouched by heavy industry. Here, amidst the gentle hum of an ecosystem finding its rhythm without humanity's heavy hand, a lonely figure found an unexpected destiny. It began, as many profound shifts do, with a celestial event. A shower of meteors, dazzling emeralds and sapphires streaking across the inky sky, had captivated Cale for hours from his porch, a rare spectacle that promised nothing more than cosmic fireworks. But then, one shard, larger than the rest, had plunged earthward with an unholy shriek, a sound that tore through the usual peace of his isolated homestead, finally impacting somewhere beyond the ridge, leaving a lingering, acrid scent on the night air. Curiosity, a dangerous companion in the quiet solitude of Xylos Prime, tugged at Cale, compelling him to venture out at first light. What he found near the impact crater, nestled amongst the charred flora, was not a fragment of rock, but something far more fragile, far more impossible, an alien girl, small and shimmering, clearly gravely injured, unlike any species ever catalogued by human xenology. Before we delve deeper into this truly unexpected encounter, into the choices that will ripple across galaxies, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single part of this unfolding saga, because trust me, you'll want to be here for every twist and turn. This is Cale, a man forged by solitude and self-reliance, a human who chose the quiet grandeur of a frontier world over the incessant clamor of core systems. His life on Xylos Prime was a meticulously cultivated existence, centered around his modest, self-sufficient farm. He was a creature of habit, his days a rhythmic dance with the land, planting, harvesting, maintaining the delicate balance of his hydroponics, and meticulously repairing the aging atmospheric processors that kept his domicile habitable. Cale knew the intricacies of the local flora and fauna better than most xenobotanists or xenobiologists back on Earth, his hands calloused from honest labor, his eyes sharp from constant observation. He had built his home piece by piece, powered it with geothermal energy, and protected it with a quiet determination. His only companions had been the rustling leaves, the distant calls of native creatures, and the unwavering stars above. He was a survivor, pragmatic and resourceful, but beneath that rugged exterior beat a heart not entirely immune to compassion. Now, standing over this small, vulnerable alien, Cale faced an immediate and profound ethical dilemma. His mind, usually so clear and decisive, now grappled with conflicting impulses. The logical part of him, the part honed by years of solitary survival, screamed abandon her. Leave her to the fate that brought her here. She was an unknown, a potential vector for exotic diseases, a beacon for unseen dangers, perhaps even an unwitting scout for an invading force. His simple, peaceful life, meticulously constructed, could shatter in an instant. Protecting her would mean exposing himself to risks beyond imagination, violating every protocol for contact with unclassified species, and quite possibly, inviting galactic-level trouble right to his doorstep. Yet another deeper instinct, something primal and undeniably human, stirred within him. Her iridescent skin, bruised and delicate, her shallow breaths, the clear, undeniable signs of pain in her fragile form, it plucked a chord of empathy he hadn't known he possessed. Could he, a human, simply walk away from a sentient being in such dire need, regardless of her origin? The choice hung heavy in the cool morning air, a silent, moral crucible. The choice hung heavy in the cool morning air, a silent, moral crucible. Cale stared down, his gaze softening as he witnessed a faint, almost imperceptible tremor run through the alien's slight frame. That tiny shiver, a universal sign of distress, was enough to tip the scales. Logic, caution, and self-preservation, tenets of his solitary life, momentarily receded before a tide of undeniable human empathy. He couldn't abandon her. He simply couldn't. With a deep, resolute sigh, Cale carefully, gently, scooped up the injured alien. Her weight was almost negligible, like a bundle of hollow bones and delicate sinew. He cradled her close, feeling the strange, almost electric warmth emanating from her skin, a warmth that seemed to pulsate faintly beneath his fingers. He knew this decision was reckless, potentially catastrophic, but in that moment, looking at her vulnerable form, it felt unequivocally right. He carried her back to his homestead, the familiar path suddenly fraught with a new kind of tension, each rustle in the undergrowth sounding like a watchful eye, each shadow harboring unseen threats. Once inside the sterile, controlled environment of his medbay, a small, highly equipped room often used for treating his own minor injuries or the occasional sick animal, he laid her gently on the examination table. Here, under the cool, steady glow of the diagnostic lights, he got a clearer look at his unexpected charge. She was undeniably small, perhaps the size of a human child, though her proportions were distinctly non-human. Her skin, shimmering with an ethereal, iridescent quality, shifted colors subtly, from pale silver to a faint lavender, like the inside of a seashell. It was incredibly delicate, scarred in several places by what appeared to be shrapnel or energy burns. Her limbs were slender, almost impossibly so, ending in small, three-fingered hands that looked more like intricate botanical structures than actual appendages. Her head was slightly elongated, crowned with what appeared to be fine, silvery filaments that gently pulsed with a soft, inner luminescence, like threads of spun moonlight. But it was her eyes that truly captivated him, large, luminous orbs, deep wells of liquid gold that seemed to hold an ancient, unsettling wisdom even in their current state of clouded pain. They flickered open momentarily, locking onto his, and in that brief, dizzying moment, Cale felt an unexpected pang of connection, a silent plea that resonated deeply within him. He would later, quite naturally, begin to call her Lyra, for the way her silvery filaments seemed to sing with silent light. Cale, despite his isolation, possessed an impressive array of rudimentary medical knowledge, gleaned from old Earth colonial manifestos and practical experience patching up himself and injured wildlife. He activated the bioscanner, its soft blue light sweeping over Lyra's still form. The readings were a chaotic mess of unknown biological markers and wildly fluctuating energy signatures. Her internal organs were unlike anything he had ever seen, a complex bioluminescent network that seemed to function more like an organic power grid than a conventional circulatory system. Her vital signs were incredibly faint, indicating severe trauma and a profound energy drain. He carefully cleaned her wounds, applying an antiseptic gel that, to his surprise, seemed to be tolerated by her alien physiology, even causing her iridescent skin to glow a little brighter in response. He fashioned a makeshift sling for her most severely injured limb, a delicate arm that appeared to have suffered a clean fracture. There was no direct verbal communication possible, but Lyra's luminous eyes followed his every move, occasionally blinking slowly, a gesture he somehow understood as a muted form of acknowledgement, or perhaps even gratitude. He administered a broad-spectrum nutrient paste, hoping her system could process it, and settled her onto a pile of soft blankets, the warm, low light of his medbay creating a cocoon of fragile safety. As the hours stretched on, Cale found himself sitting beside her, observing the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of her chest, the subtle shifts in her skin's coloration. The vast chasm of difference between them, species, language, origin, began to shrink, replaced by a nascent feeling of protectiveness. He, Cale, a lone human on a forgotten world, was now the sole guardian for this tiny, injured alien. A profound sense of responsibility settled over him, mingling with a surprising tenderness. He felt a connection forming, fragile but undeniable, a silent promise whispered between two vastly different beings united by the simple act of compassion. The next few days blurred into an intense period of diligent care and watchful observation for Cale. He meticulously maintained Lyra's wound dressings, applied nutrient pastes designed for universal biological sustainment, and adjusted the environmental controls to best suit her fluctuating body temperature. He discovered she thrived in slightly warmer, humid air, and he rigged a small humidifier near her makeshift bed. Her recovery was slow, but steady, a testament to her innate resilience and Cale's unwavering attention. Through these quiet, shared moments, a fragile trust began to blossom. Lyra's luminous eyes, once clouded with pain and apprehension, now met Cale's with a growing sense of recognition and even a flicker of what he interpreted as comfort. She would sometimes extend a delicate, three-fingered hand towards him, not in a demand, but in a gesture that seemed to seek contact, a silent acknowledgement of his presence. Cale, in turn, spoke to her in soft, reassuring tones, explaining his actions, even though he knew she couldn't understand the words. It was the rhythm of his voice, the gentle cadence, that seemed to soothe her. He moved around her with an almost reverent caution, keenly aware of her fragility, yet increasingly awed by the faint, almost imperceptible strength that seemed to emanate from her core. This nonverbal communication, built on care and mutual vulnerability, became the foundation of their burgeoning relationship. During Lyra's convalescence, Cale became obsessed with understanding her origins. He spent hours poring over his extensive xenology databases, cross-referencing every known species in every federation and independent stellar nation. He examined images of thousands of alien physiologies, studied xenolinguistic patterns, and searched through historical records of first contact events. Each search yielded nothing. Lyra's iridescent skin, her unique skeletal structure visible through his advanced medical scanner, the pulsating filaments on her head, her golden, liquid eyes, none matched any existing classification. She was an anomaly, an enigma wrapped in an otherworldly glow. This deepening mystery only heightened Cale's protectiveness. If humanity knew nothing of her kind, what dangers might she represent, or more critically, what dangers might be seeking her? Her unknown status made her both more vulnerable and more precious. He found himself spending less time on his farm duties, his focus almost entirely consumed by her well-being and the questions she posed. Cale, a man accustomed to profound solitude, suddenly found his quiet home imbued with a new, unexpected kind of companionship. He had chosen Xylos Prime precisely for its isolation, for the freedom from the constant hum of human society. Yet, in Lyra's silent presence, he discovered a different kind of connection, one that transcended species and language. He reflected on his own journey, the reasons he had sought out this distant world. Perhaps, in a subconscious way, he had been searching for something, or someone, to bridge the quiet void within him. Lyra, with her gentle movements and luminous gaze, filled that void in a way he hadn't anticipated. He found himself sharing details of his day, pointing out patterns in the leaves outside, describing the taste of earth-grown coffee to her, knowing she couldn't comprehend, but needing to share. Her quiet gratitude, expressed through the subtle shifts in her iridescent skin and the unwavering focus of her golden eyes, became its own form of conversation. As the days turned into weeks, a silent, profound bond solidified between Cale and Lyra. It was a connection built not on words, but on shared moments of vulnerability and trust. Cale continued to mend her physical wounds, and in return, Lyra, unknowingly perhaps, began to heal something within him. He felt less alone, less isolated. Her delicate presence transformed his utilitarian homestead into a sanctuary, a place where two vastly different beings found common ground in care and respect. He watched as her movements grew more fluid, her strength slowly returning. He started to see glimpses of her true nature, a quiet intelligence radiating from her luminous eyes, a curiosity that mirrored his own. This unspoken understanding, this mutual respect, transcended the vast biological and evolutionary chasm between them, proving that empathy could indeed bridge any divide. The bond they forged was deep, rooted in compassion, and quietly revolutionary in its simplicity. The bond they forged was deep, rooted in compassion, and quietly revolutionary in its simplicity. With each passing day, Lyra began to exhibit remarkable signs of recovery and an unexpected vigor. Her movements, initially slow and hesitant, gained a newfound fluidity, almost a delicate grace as she navigated Cale's living space. The subtle tremors that had marked her initial days were gone, replaced by a confident, almost ethereal poise. Her iridescent skin, no longer dulled by injury, shimmered with a vibrant spectrum of colors, reflecting her improving health. The deep wells of her golden eyes, once clouded with pain, now glowed with an intensified luminescence, sparkling with curiosity and a burgeoning inner strength that hinted at something truly extraordinary beneath her delicate exterior. She explored her surroundings with a quiet, observant intensity, her three-fingered hands gently tracing textures, her luminous filaments occasionally pulsing with a soft, inner light when something piqued her interest. Cale, watching her, felt a surge of quiet relief, mixed with a growing sense of wonder at her rapid recuperation. It was clear she was not merely healing, she was thriving, blossoming like an exotic flower under his care. As Lyra's strength returned, Cale began to notice subtle, almost imperceptible phenomena occurring around her, phenomena that defied any logical explanation. He first dismissed them as products of his imagination, or perhaps the strange atmospheric conditions of Xylos Prime, but they became too frequent, too distinct to ignore. Plants in their immediate vicinity, particularly the potted succulents Cale kept on his shelves, seemed to perk up whenever Lyra was near, their leaves becoming greener, their blooms more vibrant, as if drawing sustenance directly from her presence. On one occasion, a small, polished stone Cale, used as a paperweight on his desk, inexplicably hovered a few centimeters above the surface for a fleeting second as Lyra reached for it, before gently settling back down. Another time, a faint, almost musical hum resonated through the air around her, so subtle it was barely audible, but distinctly present, causing the sensitive instruments in his medbay to register minute energy fluctuations. These unique abilities, though still nascent and uncontrolled, hinted at an unusual power, a latent potential far beyond what he could comprehend. Lyra seemed almost unaware of them, or perhaps simply unused to their manifestation, but Cale watched with a growing sense of awe and a burgeoning awareness of the true, profound otherness of his charge. This increasing realization of Lyra's unique nature, coupled with her astonishing recovery, brought with it a renewed and intensifying fear for Cale. The thought of her being discovered by human authorities gnawed at him constantly. He pictured the panic, the scientific exploitation, the inevitable rush to analyze, dissect, and weaponize. His mind conjured images of Lyra, no longer a fragile being in need of care, but a specimen, an object of study, stripped of her dignity and freedom. Humanity, in its pursuit of knowledge and power, had a history of reacting with fear and aggression to the unknown. He knew, with chilling certainty, that her existence would not only spark global panic but also an immediate, relentless hunt to capture and control her. His peaceful, isolated life would be irrevocably shattered, and Lyra's fate would be sealed, likely in the confines of a sterile laboratory, far from the natural world she seemed to subtly enhance. A cold dread settled in his stomach, a constant companion that reminded him of the immense stakes involved. The fear intensified Cale's already fierce protectiveness into an almost primal instinct. He became meticulous about securing his homestead, installing additional, subtle cloaking fields to obscure his energy signatures from distant scans, and doubling down on his atmospheric processing filters to mask any unusual biological emanations. He began to dedicate a significant portion of his time to constructing a hidden sanctuary for Lyra within the deepest, most secure part of his home, a chamber accessible only through a cleverly disguised entry point and reinforced with blast doors and redundant life support. He envisioned it as a place where she could retreat in moments of danger, a last resort against an encroaching, hostile world. He even started to teach her rudimentary warning signals, simple gestures that would convey the need for silence or immediate retreat. Every action Cale took now was centered on shielding her, on ensuring her continued safety and freedom, even if it meant confronting unthinkable odds. The quiet colonist had transformed into a silent guardian, ready to face any threat that dared to infringe upon the fragile sanctuary he had created for his luminous ward. The quiet colonist had transformed into a silent guardian, ready to face any threat that dared to infringe upon the fragile sanctuary he had created for his luminous ward. This deep connection, forged in vulnerability and reinforced by his unwavering protection, soon began to yield an astonishing new development. Lyra, observing Cale with an almost unnerving intensity, started to mimic his sounds and gestures. It began subtly, a faint echo of his hum as he worked on his hydroponics, or a delicate mirroring of his hand movements as he tended to his garden. Then, fragments of sound, small guttural clicks and gentle whistles combined with specific gestures started to emerge. She wasn't speaking his language, not yet, but she was finding ways to communicate. Creating a rudimentary, largely symbolic, and deeply intuitive system. For instance, a soft, high-pitched trill followed by touching his hand meant comfort or affection. A series of rapid clicks and a pointing gesture towards the sky indicated her fascination with the star patterns Kale would show her on his holographic projector. He, in turn, adapted, learning her nonverbal cues, interpreting the subtle shifts in her skin coloration, the intensity of her eye glow, the gentle pulse of her luminous filaments. They built a bridge of understanding, brick by fragile brick, across the vast gulf of their species. It was a communication more profound than mere words, rooted in shared experience and an undeniable emotional connection. Lyra's attempts, though rudimentary, filled Kale with an almost paternal pride, a testament to her intelligence and a hope for deeper interaction. These embryonic steps towards communication often occurred during their shared moments of peaceful observation. Kale would often sit with Lyra on his porch, gazing out at the verdant landscape of Xylos Prime, or watching the binary sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and violet. They would sit in comfortable silence, Lyra occasionally pointing a delicate digit at a soaring sky mantis or a particularly vibrant bloom, her golden eyes reflecting the scene with an almost childlike wonder. Kale would narrate the names of the creatures, the cycles of the day, the gentle rhythm of the world outside, knowing his words were less important than the shared intimacy of the moment. These were moments of profound, quiet tranquility, reinforcing the unconventional bond that had woven itself between them. In these shared silences, Kale felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth, a quiet joy that resonated deep within his solitary soul. Yet, even amidst these idyllic interludes, an internal conflict gnawed at Kale. He questioned the implications of his actions, understanding, with chilling clarity, the cosmic consequences of harboring an unknown alien. His logical mind, the one that had guided him through years of self-imposed exile, screamed at the possible repercussions. What if Lyra was a fugitive? What if her species was hostile? What would happen when, inevitably, someone came looking for her? He wasn't just breaking galactic law. He was potentially altering the course of interstellar relations, perhaps even inviting an interspecies conflict to his doorstep. The weight of this realization was immense, a silent burden he carried even as he smoothed Lyra's luminous filaments, or shared a quiet smile with her. He knew his decision to save her had been driven by pure, unadulterated empathy, but empathy, he mused, could have devastating, far-reaching consequences in a universe largely governed by fear and territorialism. He had opened his home, and in doing so, perhaps opened Pandora's box. This internal struggle was exacerbated by an unspoken threat that permeated the peaceful coexistence. It wasn't a tangible enemy, not yet, but a quiet anxiety, a pervasive sense of impending discovery that settled over Kale like a persistent fog. He found himself constantly checking his long-range sensors, double-checking his perimeter cloaks, listening for any unusual atmospheric disturbances. Each distant flicker in the night sky, every anomalous energy reading, sent a jolt of unease through him. He knew their sanctuary was fragile, their peace temporary. Someone, somewhere, had to be missing Lyra. Her unique physiology and evident importance suggested she wasn't just a random traveler. This constant apprehension, this quiet dread, underscored every shared moment, every gentle gesture. It was the silent, ever-present specter hanging over their unlikely friendship, a grim reminder that their extraordinary world could be shattered at any moment, by forces far beyond Kale's control. The peace was real, but it was a peace built on borrowed time, a precious, fleeting calm before an inevitable storm Kale knew was gathering somewhere out in the vast, indifferent cosmos. The peace was real, but it was a peace built on borrowed time, a precious, fleeting calm before an inevitable storm Kale knew was gathering somewhere out in the vast, indifferent cosmos. It was within this uneasy calm, during one of his routine system checks, that Kale's long-range sensors, usually dormant in the quiet expanse of his corner of the galaxy, suddenly flickered to life. A faint, almost imperceptible energy signature registered on his console, a tiny spike amidst the background stellar noise. It was distant, incredibly so, originating from beyond his system's outer markers, a ghost in the machine of the cosmic void. His brow furrowed in concentration. He zoomed in, adjusting the filters, trying to resolve the signal. It wasn't a natural phenomenon, not the usual cosmic background radiation or the spectral emissions of distant nebulae. There was an artificiality to its rhythm, a subtle, structured pulse that suggested intelligence, intent. Cale initially dismissed it. He wanted to. His life had found a delicate, hard-won balance since Lyra's arrival, a peace he was loath to disrupt. He rationalized it as natural interference, perhaps a stray burst from a rogue asteroid's internal fission, or some distant, dying star's final, erratic gasp. He tried to convince himself it was simply debris from an old, forgotten conflict, or a faulty sensor reading. He ran diagnostics on his equipment, but the sensors checked out perfectly. The signal remained. It was incredibly weak, fluctuating, almost teasing him with its elusive presence, but undeniably there. He made a mental note to check it again later, pushing the faint anomaly to the back of his mind, unwilling to shatter the fragile sanctuary he had carefully constructed around Lyra. However, the signal persisted. Day after day, it returned, always in the same quadrant, always with that subtle, artificial pulse. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to strengthen. Not by much, but enough for Cale to notice, enough to pull it from the realm of background noise into something more distinct, more insistent. The growing unease began to curdle in Cale's stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling, a cold, creeping certainty, that this signal, this distant, persistent whisper from the void, was somehow connected to Lyra. It was too much of a coincidence, too perfectly timed with her miraculous recovery and the nascent blossoming of her unique abilities. He found himself spending more time at his console, charting the signal's subtle trajectory, running complex algorithms to predict its origin and intent. The more he analyzed, the more his unease crystallized into a gnawing suspicion. As Cale grappled with these burgeoning fears, Lyra, always acutely attuned to the subtle shifts in her environment, and, as Cale was beginning to suspect, to his emotional state, began to exhibit her own subtle reactions. She became restless, her usual serene movements replaced by a quiet agitation. Her luminous eyes, which typically held a calm, almost contemplative gaze, now darted frequently towards the sky, particularly in the direction Cale knew the signal was originating from. She would pause during her gentle explorations of the homestead, her delicate head cocked, as if listening to a frequency Cale couldn't perceive. Her silvery filaments, usually a soft, steady glow, would occasionally pulse with a nervous energy, flaring brighter for an instant before dimming again. She didn't make any overt sounds of distress, but her entire demeanor radiated a subtle, unspoken anxiety, a premonition of something approaching that Cale could only sense through the cold data on his screen. It was clear she was reacting to something, an unseen presence, a distant call that stirred deep within her, confirming Cale's growing dread. The tranquility of their world was about to be irrevocably disturbed. The tranquility of their world was about to be irrevocably disturbed. Cale, observing Lyra's subtle agitation, felt a cold dread solidify in his gut. He returned to his console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface, pulling up the latest sensor sweep. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The energy signature had not just strengthened, it was now rapidly intensifying, growing in amplitude and clarity with every passing minute. It was no longer a ghost in the machine, but a distinct, powerful beacon, pulsing with an undeniable artificiality. The trajectory data, once tenuous and speculative, now resolved into a clear, terrifying path. It wasn't just coming from beyond his system. It was heading directly towards Xylos Prime, straight towards his quiet homestead. A wave of icy realization washed over Cale, chilling him to the bone. This wasn't some random stellar phenomenon, nor was it a derelict hulk drifting aimlessly. This was a search party. An incredibly powerful, technologically advanced search party. And Lyra was undeniably its target. All his careful precautions, his cloaking fields, his massed emanations, they had only delayed the inevitable, bought them precious, fleeting time. The sophisticated nature of the incoming signal suggested a level of technology far beyond anything he possessed, perhaps even beyond current human capabilities. This wasn't just a ship, it was likely a fleet, relentless in its pursuit. He clenched his jaw, the taste of ash in his mouth. His isolated sanctuary, his haven of peace, was about to be obliterated by forces he couldn't possibly comprehend, let alone defend against. Lyra sensed the approaching danger with an animalistic certainty. Her frail body, which had shown such resilience in recovery, now trembled uncontrollably. The luminous filaments on her head flickered wildly, like agitated fireflies, and her golden eyes, wide with a profound, almost cosmic fear, darted around the room as if searching for an escape that didn't exist. She let out a soft, high-pitched whimper, a sound Cale had never heard from her before, a sound of pure terror. Then, with a sudden, desperate movement, she launched herself into Cale's arms, clinging to him with surprising strength, burying her head against his chest. Her small form shook violently, transmitting her raw, unambiguous fear directly into him. It was a tangible, palpable terror, a primal response to an existential threat. He held her close, stroking her shimmering back, trying to offer what little comfort he could, even as his own heart pounded against his ribs. He felt her tiny hands, usually so delicate, clenching his tunic with a desperate grip, a silent plea for protection. The distant threat was no longer theoretical, a mere blip on a screen or a gnawing anxiety in the back of his mind. It was becoming tangible, real, manifesting as a rapidly approaching force that would soon tear through the fragile peace of their existence. The calculations on his console updated again. Estimated time of arrival, less than 12 hours. The vast, indifferent cosmos had finally noticed them, and it was bearing down with unimaginable speed and power. Cale looked down at Lyra, her small body still trembling in his embrace, and then out toward the pre-dawn darkness beyond his window. The stars, usually a source of comfort and wonder, now seemed cold and menacing, gateways for the inevitable. Their sanctuary, built on quiet moments and shared vulnerability, was poised to shatter. The storm he had so long dreaded was no longer gathering. It was here, on the very edge of his doorstep, ready to unleash its fury. There was no escape, only the stark reality of what was to come. The storm he had so long dreaded was no longer gathering. It was here, on the very edge of his doorstep, ready to unleash its fury. There was no escape, only the stark reality of what was to come. Cale, his jaw set with grim determination, knew that inaction was no longer an option. He gently disentangled Lyra from his embrace, her luminous eyes still wide with fear, and settled her in the concealed, reinforced chamber he had painstakingly prepared. This was not a place to hide, he understood, but a place for protection, a momentary respite from the inevitable chaos. He activated the chamber's internal life support, and sealed the blast door, a heavy thud echoing his own pounding heart. His homestead, once a symbol of serene self-sufficiency, now became a fortress, however futile that might prove to be. He moved with a quiet, efficient urgency, his mind racing, cataloging every resource, every potential advantage, however small. First, he secured all vital supplies, nutrient paste, fresh water from his purified reserves, medical kits, and a handful of energy cells for emergency power. He moved them to the nearest reinforced storage bunker, a subterranean vault beneath his main living area. He checked the pressure seals on his habitat, ensuring they were fully engaged, and activated the external camouflage system, which used advanced light refraction to make the homestead virtually invisible to optical sensors from a distance. It was a long shot, but every second counted. His comms array, usually a tool for occasional, leisurely contact with the nearest human outpost hundreds of light years away, was now focused on receiving, scanning for any further intelligence from the approaching fleet. He ran diagnostics on his automated perimeter defenses, a series of sonic emitters and low-yield kinetic barriers designed to deter local wildlife, not an interstellar armada. They were pathetic against what was coming, he knew, but he had to try. He recalibrated them for maximum output, hoping they might buy him a precious few moments, a flicker of warning that could make a difference. He was preparing for a siege, against an enemy whose capabilities he could only guess at, armed with nothing but his wits and a farmer's ingenuity. As Cale worked, a strange, almost electric tension permeated the air. From within Lyra's secure chamber, subtle energy fluctuations pulsed outward, detectable even through the thick, reinforced walls. He saw his environmental monitors register brief, inexplicable spikes in localized energy, then a sudden, almost imperceptible drop in ambient temperature around the chamber, followed by a rush of warmth. These were Lyra's powers again, manifesting more clearly, more powerfully under duress. He imagined her within, a tiny generator of unknown forces, her fear perhaps amplifying her latent abilities. The plants in his hydroponics bay closest to her chamber seemed to visibly strain, their leaves quivering as if under an invisible force field. A faint, high-pitched hum vibrated through the floorboards, a sound he now associated with her unusual capabilities. It was a testament to her true potential, a power that, if harnessed, could be truly devastating. He realized then that the threat was not just to Lyra, but perhaps from her as well, if pushed too far. He had to protect her, not just from others, but perhaps, in some way, from herself. A profound realization settled over Cale, hardening his resolve. He had taken Lyra in out of simple human compassion, a visceral refusal to let a helpless creature suffer. Now, with an unknown force bearing down on his home, his decision was no longer just about empathy, it was about honor. He wouldn't abandon her. He couldn't. Whatever lay beyond the horizon, whatever alien force was about to descend upon his quiet world, he would face it. His priority wasn't self-preservation in the traditional sense, but Lyra's safety. He was a simple farmer, a colonist who sought peace, but he was also a human, and humans, for all their flaws, were capable of fierce loyalty and an unwavering protective instinct. He would stand his ground, not with weapons he didn't possess, but with the quiet defiance of a man who had made a choice, and who would see it through to its conclusion. He would confront this alien force, whatever it was, for the sake of the creature he had sheltered. The final hours before dawn passed in a blur of last-minute preparations and an agonizing wait. Cale stood on his porch, the pre-dawn air cool and still, his eyes scanning the eastern horizon. The stars, usually a comforting backdrop, now seemed to burn with an unnatural intensity, almost expectant. The sky began to lighten, the first faint blush of orange and purple painting the distant clouds. Birds, unaware of the impending cataclysm, began their morning chorus, their innocent songs echoing in the tense silence. Cale took a deep, steadying breath, the scent of alien flora filling his lungs. The sun rose, casting long, stark shadows across his farm, illuminating the path to his homestead. It was a beautiful, ordinary dawn, but Cale knew, with absolute certainty, that this new day would bring nothing ordinary. It would bring judgment, confrontation, and perhaps, the unraveling of everything he knew. The sun rose, casting long, stark shadows across his farm, illuminating the path to his homestead. It was a beautiful, ordinary dawn, but Cale knew, with absolute certainty, that this new day would bring nothing ordinary. It would bring judgment, confrontation, and perhaps, the unraveling of everything he knew. The clear, blue sky, usually a canvas for Xylos Prime's gentle, soaring sky mantises, abruptly shimmered. A ripple, like heat haze over a desert road, expanded rapidly, distorting the light. Then, with a sudden, breathtaking clarity, they materialized. Not one, but a fleet. Immense, silent, and terrifyingly advanced, they emerged from hyperspace, their sheer scale dwarfing the distant mountains, their sleek, obsidian hulls reflecting the nascent sunlight like polished mirrors. They hung in the upper atmosphere, a silent, menacing presence. Cale watched, transfixed, as the lead vessel, easily kilometers long, slowly began its descent, followed by a phalanx of smaller, though still monstrously large, support craft. Their silent arrival was more unnerving than any thunderous entrance, a testament to their mastery over space and physics. These were not crude, cobbled-together ships. These were marvels of engineering, smooth and elegant, yet radiating an undeniable power. Their presence was a stark, brutal confirmation of the immense technological superiority of Lyra's people. Cale's tiny homestead, his entire world, looked utterly insignificant against this display of alien might. He felt a profound, chilling realization of just how outmatched he truly was. From inside the reinforced chamber, a faint, almost melodic hum began to emanate. Cale knew Lyra was watching them. He peered through the thick viewing port to her secure space, and saw her standing before the internal monitor, her luminous eyes fixed on the display showing the descending fleet. There was no fear now, not the raw, primal terror she had exhibited hours ago. Instead, her small form seemed to radiate a complex mixture of emotions, awe at the sight of her own kind, a quiet relief that they had come, but also a lingering sadness, a wistful quality that suggested a deeper, more complicated history than Cale could ever have imagined. She reached out a delicate, three-fingered hand, almost touching the image of the lead ship, her luminous filaments pulsing gently, as if in recognition, or perhaps a lament for what had been lost, or what was yet to come. Her people were here, but her reaction hinted that their arrival was not just a simple rescue. Cale stood alone on his porch, a single human figure silhouetted against the rising sun, facing an armada. His heart pounded a relentless rhythm against his ribs, but a strange sense of calm had settled over him. His hands, calloused and strong, were empty. He had no weapons that could even scratch the paint on those colossal ships, no defenses that could hope to withstand their power. Yet he would not move. He would not flee. He stood as a silent testament to his resolve, a solitary guardian ready to face an entire alien civilization for the sake of the being he had sheltered, the fragile, luminous creature he had nursed back to health. The first of the smaller ships, a sleek, arrow-shaped craft, detached from the main fleet and began its rapid, silent descent towards his clearing. It landed with barely a whisper, its grav drives creating only a gentle disturbance in the morning air. A ramp extended, hissing softly, and a contingent of what could only be Lyra's people emerged. They were tall, slender, and moved with an almost ethereal grace, their forms clad in intricate, form-fitting armor that shimmered with the same iridescent quality as Lyra's skin. Their head crests, intricate and varied, suggested a complex social structure. Each carried a weapon, sleek and alien, radiating silent power. They were an army, exquisitely equipped, meticulously trained, and utterly focused. Cale took a deep breath, the air suddenly thick with an unspoken tension. He was just one man, but he was prepared to stand for what he believed in, even against the overwhelming might of a galactic power. His promise to Lyra, sworn in silent moments of care, now defined his stand. The confrontation was upon them. The first of the smaller ships, a sleek, arrow-shaped craft, detached from the main fleet and began its rapid, silent descent towards his clearing. It landed with barely a whisper, its grav drives creating only a gentle disturbance in the morning air. A ramp extended, hissing softly, and a contingent of what could only be Lyra's people emerged. They were tall, slender, and moved with an almost ethereal grace, their forms clad in intricate, form-fitting armor that shimmered with the same iridescent quality as Lyra's skin. Their head crests, intricate and varied, suggested a complex social structure. Each carried a weapon, sleek and alien, radiating silent power. They were an army, exquisitely equipped, meticulously trained, and utterly focused. Cale took a deep breath, the air suddenly thick with an unspoken tension. He was just one man, but he was prepared to stand for what he believed in, even against the overwhelming might of a galactic power. His promise to Lyra, sworn in silent moments of care, now defined his stand. The confrontation was upon them. The initial dropship was quickly joined by several others, landing in a precise, geometric pattern around Cale's homestead, their powerful grav drives kicking up dust and alien foliage. From each craft, more alien soldiers emerged, their movements swift and coordinated, spreading out to form an impenetrable perimeter. Heavily armed, exotic, and radiating an unmistakable air of authority, they fanned out, their advanced weaponry, capable of disintegrating matter with a thought, now pointed directly at Cale. The holographic targeting reticules glowed ominously on his chest, a stark reminder of his vulnerability. Despite the precision of their maneuvers, there was no overt aggression, no shouted commands, just an eerie, silent efficiency. Cale remained rooted to his spot on the porch, his hands open and empty, his gaze unflinching. He was a single point of defiance against a wave of overwhelming power, a lone human caught in an interstellar standoff. As the perimeter solidified, a different figure emerged from the lead dropship, instantly commanding attention. Taller than the rest, its armor was less utilitarian, more ceremonial, adorned with luminous symbols and intricate filigree that pulsed with a soft inner light. Its head crest was larger, more elaborate, suggesting immense rank. This was clearly a leader, radiating an aura of calm authority, yet also a deep concern that was palpable even across the distance. It moved directly towards Cale, its pace unhurried, its eyes, twin pools of liquid light, fixed intently on him. As it stopped a few meters away, it raised a slender, three-fingered hand, not in aggression, but in a gesture that was both commanding and inquisitive. From a small device integrated into its wrist armor, a series of complex, untranslatable symbols projected into the air between them, shimmering with an inner life, clearly an attempt at communication, but one Cale could not decipher. Cale stood his ground, a silent pillar of resistance. He understood the visual prompt was a demand, an order, perhaps to step aside, to surrender. But surrender meant giving up Lyra, and that was something he simply could not do. His jaw was tight, his gaze unwavering as he met the alien leader's luminous stare. He offered no verbal response, knowing any words would be meaningless. Instead, he shook his head slowly, a clear, unambiguous refusal. His posture, though unarmed, conveyed a quiet defiance, a stubborn unwillingness to yield. He gestured subtly back towards his homestead, a silent declaration that Lyra was under his protection, that she was safe within. It was a clear signal of his intent to shield her, to oppose them if necessary, an impossible stand by any rational measure, yet one he was prepared to make. The alien leader's posture shifted almost imperceptibly, a subtle tightening of its grip on some unseen control, a barely perceptible flicker in its luminous eyes. The surrounding soldiers, interpreting Cale's protective stance and noncompliance as hostile, tightened their formation, their weapons emitting a low, dangerous hum. The projected symbols intensified, flashing rapidly, now appearing more urgent, less inquisitive. The communication barrier was absolute, and the misunderstanding was profound. Cale's intent to protect was being perceived as an act of aggression, a challenge to their authority. The air grew heavy, crackling with an unspoken tension, each side poised at the precipice of galactic-scale violence. The leader raised its hand again, and the humming of the weapons intensified, a clear warning. The standoff was complete, equilibrium shattered, and the fragile peace teetered precariously on the brink of an inevitable, catastrophic conflict. The leader raised its hand again, and the humming of the weapons intensified, a clear warning. The standoff was complete, equilibrium shattered, and the fragile peace teetered precariously on the brink of an inevitable, catastrophic conflict. Just as the tension reached its absolute peak, a soft, ethereal glow emanated from the doorway of Cale's homestead. Lyra, her luminous filaments shimmering within. Inner light that seemed to cut through the heavy atmosphere, stepped out. She moved with an innate grace, her small form radiating an unexpected authority, an ancient power. The alien soldiers, momentarily startled, lowered their weapons by an inch, their targeting reticules flickering. Lyra walked purposefully, her golden eyes fixed on her people, then she positioned herself directly between Cale and the alien leader. She raised her delicate, three-fingered hands, and a cascade of shimmering, intricate symbols, far more complex and fluid than those projected by the leader, streamed from her fingertips, swirling visually into the air between the two parties. This was not merely communication, it was an advanced form of telepathic projection, weaving images, emotions, and concepts directly into the minds of her people, bridging the vast linguistic and cultural chasm in an instant. The effect was immediate and profound. The alien soldiers, whose seconds earlier had been a wall of silent, armed menace, now shifted, their postures relaxing almost imperceptibly. Their head crests, which had been flared in readiness for conflict, slowly receded. The leader, its luminous eyes wide with a mix of shock and profound relief, dropped its hand entirely, the projected symbols from its wrist disappearing. Lyra had spoken, not with sound, but with pure intent, with mind-to-mind clarity. She was explaining, Cale realized, everything. Her ordeal, his kindness, the sacred bond forged in the crucible of vulnerability. Through this silent, telepathic torrent Cale, too, began to understand. As Lyra communicated with her people, fragments of information, echoes of her projected thoughts, brushed against his mind. He saw images of a cosmic incident, a devastating energy surge that had flung her across interstellar space. He saw her people's desperate search, spanning vast sectors there. Despair at her presumed loss. And then, most astonishingly, he understood Lyra's true identity. She was not merely a lost alien. She was a highly revered individual, a figure of immense importance, perhaps even royalty, or a critical nexus within her civilization's delicate balance. Her people saw her as a beacon, a key element of their very existence, whose absence had caused widespread grief and disarray. This was why they had come with such overwhelming force, with such desperate urgency. She was not just a lost child, she was a universal treasure. Cale stood there, utterly stunned by the revelation. The fragile, injured creature he had found by chance, the luminous being he had nursed back to health, was not just any alien. She was a figure of cosmic significance, a being whose existence held profound weight for an entire civilization. The enormity of it all crashed down upon him. He had unknowingly rescued and sheltered someone potentially pivotal to interstellar politics, someone whose very presence could trigger wars or forge alliances. His simple act of compassion, born of pure human empathy, had inadvertently placed him at the center of a galactic drama, a drama far grander than he could have ever conceived. He looked at Lyra, her small frame now radiating a quiet dignity, and saw her not just as the alien girl he had saved, but as a being of immense power and importance, a queen, a sage, a living myth. As Lyra continued her silent communication, the alien leader, its posture now completely devoid of hostility, turned its luminous gaze back to Cale. Through Lyra's mental translation, words, or rather concepts, began to filter into Cale's mind, clear and unmistakable. The leader explained that Lyra, whom they referred to by a name Cale understood as Starchild, or Luminous Core, was believed lost to a devastating cosmic event, a volatile stellar flare that had consumed her escort and flung her ship far beyond their known travel lanes. They had been searching for her for an immeasurable span of time, their civilization gripped by sorrow and uncertainty. The single, faint energy signature Cale had detected was a distress beacon, automatically activated upon her initial impact, barely transmitting across the vast emptiness of space. They had followed that faint thread for what felt like an eternity, across light years, across galaxies, driven by an unyielding hope, never fully believing they would find her alive. Their presence here, the vast fleet, the armed soldiers, was not an invasion, but a desperate, final attempt at rescue, fueled by a profound love and reverence for their lost starchild. They were not hostile, they were simply desperate, overjoyed, and eternally grateful. Lyra, with her profound communication abilities, eloquently explained Cale's actions, painting a vivid mental landscape for her people. She showed them his initial fear, his internal struggle, and ultimately, his unwavering choice to offer aid to a helpless, unknown entity. She highlighted his meticulous care, the tireless nights spent nursing her back to health, the small, tender gestures of comfort, and the makeshift bed he had created. She conveyed the countless hours he dedicated to understanding her unique physiology, the genuine concern etched onto his face when her energy signatures faltered. Most powerfully, she projected his fierce protectiveness, describing how he had built a sanctuary for her, how he had stood his ground, alone and unarmed, against their overwhelming force, ready to sacrifice everything for her safety. She articulated his pure, unadulterated compassion, a human trait that transcended the vast chasm of interspecies difference. It was a narrative of selfless love and profound courage, demonstrating the very best of humanity, a creature risking everything for another, simply because it was the right thing to do. She showed them his quiet strength, his unwavering kindness, and the deep, unspoken bond they had forged, turning a chance encounter into a cosmic act of profound significance. The impact of Lyra's mental exposition was transformative. The alien soldiers, whose seconds before had been poised for conflict, now lowered their weapons fully, their initial hostility replaced by a tangible aura of awe and profound gratitude. Their intricate headcrests, which had been flared in readiness, receded completely, and their luminous eyes, once sharp and analytical, now softened, reflecting a deep respect. They understood, with a clarity that surpassed spoken language, Cale's selfless act. Their silent military precision dissolved into a collective stillness, a moment of profound recognition. They were not merely grateful for the return of their luminous core, they were deeply moved by the unexpected kindness shown by this solitary human. His courage and compassion had resonated through their collective consciousness, painting a picture of humanity that defied any preconceived notions of primitive, xenophobic, or aggressive species. A quiet, almost reverent hum permeated the air, a collective acknowledgement of Cale's extraordinary deed. The alien leader, whose earlier demeanor had been one of cautious authority, now approached Cale with a deliberate grace. Its luminous eyes met Cale's, and through Lyra's gentle mental translation, Cale felt a wave of pure, unfiltered gratitude wash over him. The leader extended a slender, three-fingered hand slowly, deliberately, towards Cale. It was not a gesture of dominance or demand, but one of profound thanks, a physical manifestation of their immense appreciation. Cale, still reeling from the mental cascade of Lyra's explanation, instinctively mirrored the gesture, his callous hand meeting the leader's delicate, iridescent one. The touch was soft, warm, almost electric, and in that moment, Cale felt an unprecedented connection, an acknowledgement of his compassion that transcended all species boundaries. The leader's internal thoughts, relayed by Lyra, reinforced a message of eternal indebtedness, for Cale's actions had not only saved their luminous core but had also revealed a profound kindness in the universe they had not expected to find. What began as a tense, high-stakes standoff, teetering on the brink of interstellar conflict, had transformed into a pivotal moment of first contact. It was not born of fear or aggression, but of an unexpected understanding and mutual respect. The initial suspicion and hostility, fueled by fear of the unknown, had been utterly obliterated by Lyra's eloquent testimony and Cale's undeniable display of compassion. The vast technological disparity, the alienness of Lyra's people, all faded into the background. All that remained was the profound truth of a simple act of human kindness, an act that had bridged not just a communication gap, but an entire cosmic divide. The air, once crackling with tension, now hummed with a nascent hope, a quiet promise of a future where understanding could triumph over fear. They had come as an armada, but they remained as allies, bound by the actions of one humble human. They had come as an armada, but they remained as allies, bound by the actions of one humble human. The alien leader, its posture now radiating a benevolent authority, turned its luminous gaze from Lyra to Cale. Through Lyra's continued mental translation, a new stream of concepts began to flow into Cale's mind, clear and eloquent. It was an offer, not of obligation, but of profound gratitude and respect. The leader expressed its civilization's eternal indebtedness for Cale's singular act of compassion and bravery. They offered Cale a choice, presented with the weight and sincerity of an entire species. He could choose to join them, to travel among the stars as an honored guest and hero, to be rewarded with knowledge, technology, and experiences beyond his wildest dreams. He would be revered, protected, and given a place of honor within their civilization, a living bridge between two species. Or, he could choose to remain on his home world, Xylos Prime, and they would leave him with their eternal gratitude and unwavering protection. They would ensure his peace and safety for as long as his species endured, recognizing his sacred status as Lyra's rescuer. The offer was vast, breathtaking in its generosity, a testament to the profound impact of his actions. As the leader's offer settled in Cale's mind, Lyra approached him, her luminous eyes reflecting a bittersweet understanding. She reached out her delicate, three-fingered hand, and her touch was as gentle and profound as the very first time he had made contact with her. It was a farewell, expressed not with words, but with a shared gaze that contained volumes of their journey together. The quiet nights, the shared moments of peace, his diligent care, her slow recovery, the evolving trust, all these memories flashed between them, a silent testament to their unique and unbreakable bond. Her luminous filaments pulsed with a soft, comforting glow, a final tangible connection to the extraordinary being he had sheltered. There was sadness in her departure, a quiet sorrow for the physical separation, but also a deep knowledge that their connection transcended mere proximity. She communicated a final message of boundless gratitude, a promise that he would always be remembered, always be cherished, in the heart of her species. Cale, standing amidst the advanced alien technology and the silent, expectant faces of an intergalactic civilization, took a long, steadying breath. The choice was monumental, a crossroads that would define the rest of his existence. He could embark on an adventure beyond imagination, explore the cosmos with beings who held him in such high regard. The allure was undeniable. But as he looked around, at the familiar slopes of his mountains, the tall, rustling alien trees, the modest homestead he had built with his own hands, he realized what truly mattered to him. His peace, his simple life, his connection to this wild, beautiful world, these were the bedrock of his being. He valued his solitude, his self-sufficiency, the quiet rhythm of his existence more than any galactic glory. He met the alien leader's gaze, then Lyra's, and gave a slow, firm nod. He chose to remain. He would stay on Xylos Prime, not out of fear or lack of ambition, but out of a deep-seated contentment with the life he had forged. He chose his quiet corner of the universe, but he accepted their friendship, their promise of protection, and the indelible link his actions had forged. The alien leader, its gaze conveying understanding and respect, bowed its head slightly in acknowledgement of Cale's decision. Through Lyra, a final message of reassurance and profound respect solidified in Cale's mind. The leader assured Cale that his choice was honored, and that their two civilizations, once separated by unimaginable distances and total ignorance, were now forever linked by his singular act of kindness. The bridge had been built, not by treaties or trade, but by a simple, powerful display of empathy that resonated across the stars. This was not merely the end of a dramatic encounter, it was the dawn of a new era, a promise of future bonds and mutual understanding, born from the most unexpected of circumstances. This human, this farmer, had, in his own humble way, rewritten the first contact protocols for an entire civilization. The alien leader, its gaze conveying understanding and respect, bowed its head slightly in acknowledgement of Cale's decision. Through Lyra, a final message of reassurance and profound respect solidified in Cale's mind. The leader assured Cale that his choice was honored, and that their two civilizations, once separated by unimaginable distances and total ignorance, were now forever linked by his singular act of kindness. The bridge had been built, not by treaties or trade, but by a simple, powerful display of empathy that resonated across the stars. This was not merely the end of a dramatic encounter, it was the dawn of a new era, a promise of future bonds and mutual understanding, born from the most unexpected of circumstances. This human, this farmer, had, in his own humble way, rewritten the first contact protocols for an entire civilization. With Lyra safely returned to her people and Cale's choice clearly articulated, the vast alien fleet began its preparations for departure. The immense ships, which had dominated the sky for hours, powered up their engines with a silent hum that vibrated through the very ground. One by one, the smaller dropships retracted their ramps and ascended, rejoining their colossal motherships in elegant, choreographed movements. The ground troops, their mission accomplished, dissolved back into their transports with the same silent efficiency with which they had arrived. The entire armada, a testament to an unimaginable technological prowess, began to ascend, its dark forms gradually shrinking against the vibrant blue of Xylos Prime's sky. Before they made their final jump to hyperspace, a single, smaller vessel detached from the main fleet. This ship, sleek and unobtrusive, landed gently a few kilometers from Kale's homestead, deploying a small, discreet team. Through Lyra's final, lingering mental contact, Kale understood this was not an act of surveillance or distrust, but one of protective observation. This team would ensure his safety, monitor his well-being, and maintain the newly established communication link, a silent promise of their eternal gratitude and unwavering protection. Then, with a final, almost imperceptible shimmer that marked their transition to faster-than-light travel, the entire fleet vanished, leaving behind only the gentle hum of the wind and an astonishing silence. Kale stood on his porch, watching the last vestiges of the alien presence disappear from the sky. His world, once a solitary haven, now felt irrevocably connected to an entire universe, vast and complex beyond his wildest imaginings. The quiet solitude he had cultivated for years was no longer absolute. It was now interwoven with the threads of interstellar diplomacy, alien gratitude, and the unspoken pact he had forged. He was no longer just a colonist, a farmer on a remote world. He was a pivotal figure in humanity's cosmic narrative, a bridge builder between species. The air still carried the faint scent of alien technology, a lingering reminder of the extraordinary events that had transpired. He looked at his hands that had tilled alien soil, repaired atmospheric processors, and bathed the delicate wounds of a star-child. His perspective had fundamentally shifted. The horizon of his understanding had expanded infinitely. His life would never be the same, and he knew, deep in his heart, that this was a change for the better. He reflected on the days he had spent nursing Lyra, the simple, selfless act of compassion that had transformed his life and, by extension, had ripple effects across the cosmos. It was a powerful lesson that a single, genuine act of kindness, untainted by expectation or gain, could transcend species, bridge unimaginable distances, and foster understanding where only fear and ignorance had existed before. He realized that the true legacy of this encounter wasn't the advanced technology he had glimpsed, or the galactic alliances that might someday form, but the profound demonstration of empathy. It was a testament to the innate human capacity for compassion, a quality that perhaps, more than any weapon or starship, was humanity's greatest strength. His small act had sown seeds of understanding, proving that even a lone voice of kindness could resonate through the vast, indifferent silence of space, fostering connections and forging unexpected bonds between disparate species. As the sun climbed higher, casting the familiar long shadows of morning across his farm, Kale returned to his daily routine. He checked the hydroponics, tended to his atmospheric filters, and prepared a simple breakfast. But his actions were imbued with a new sense of purpose, a quiet understanding that he was now part of something infinitely larger than himself. The quiet hum of his homestead, once a backdrop for his solitary existence, now felt like a gentle thrum of connection, a subtle echo of the universe he was now inextricably linked to. He knew that his role in humanity's cosmic story, though humble, had been undeniably pivotal. He was the human who had sheltered an alien girl, and in doing so, had opened a door to the stars, not with force, but with kindness. His life was still simple, still rooted in the soil of Xylos Prime, but now it was also touched by the infinite, forever changed by the luminous eyes of an alien princess. He carried the weight of galactic significance with the quiet dignity of a man who simply did what was right. The alien leader, its gaze conveying understanding and respect, bowed its head slightly in acknowledgement of Kale's decision. Through Lyra, a final message of reassurance and profound respect solidified in Kale's mind. The leader assured Kale that his choice was honored, and that their two civilizations, once separated by unimaginable distances and total ignorance, were now forever linked by his singular act of kindness. The bridge had been built, not by treaties or trade, but by a simple, powerful display of empathy that resonated across the stars. This was not merely the end of a dramatic encounter, it was the dawn of a new era, a promise of future bonds and mutual understanding, born from the most unexpected of circumstances. This human, this farmer, had, in his own humble way, rewritten the first contact protocols for an entire civilization. With Lyra safely returned to her people and Kale's choice clearly articulated, the vast alien fleet began its preparations for departure. The immense ships, which had dominated the sky for hours, powered up their engines with a silent hum that vibrated through the very ground. One by one, the smaller dropships retracted their ramps and ascended, rejoining their colossal motherships in elegant, choreographed movements. The ground troops, their mission accomplished, dissolved back into their transports with the same silent efficiency with which they had arrived. The entire armada, a testament to an unimaginable technological prowess, began to ascend, its dark forms gradually shrinking against the vibrant blue of Xylos Prime's sky. Before they made their final jump to hyperspace, a single, smaller vessel detached from the main fleet. This ship, sleek and unobtrusive, landed gently a few kilometers from Kale's homestead, deploying a small, discreet team. Through Lyra's final, lingering mental contact, Kale understood this was not an act of surveillance or distrust, but one of protective observation. This team would ensure his safety, monitor his well-being, and maintain the newly established communication link, a silent promise of their eternal gratitude and unwavering protection. Then, with a final, almost imperceptible shimmer that marked their transition to faster-than-light travel, the entire fleet vanished, leaving behind only the gentle hum of the wind and an astonishing silence. Kale stood on his porch, watching the last vestiges of the alien presence disappear from the sky. His world, once a solitary haven, now felt irrevocably connected to an entire universe, vast and complex beyond his wildest imaginings. The quiet solitude he had cultivated for years was no longer absolute. It was now interwoven with the threads of interstellar diplomacy, alien gratitude, and the unspoken pact he had forged. He was no longer just a colonist, a farmer on a remote world. He was a pivotal figure in humanity's cosmic narrative, a bridge builder between species. The air still carried the faint scent of alien technology, a lingering reminder of the extraordinary events that had transpired. He looked at his hands that had tilled alien soil, repaired atmospheric processors, and bathed the delicate wounds of a star-child. His perspective had fundamentally shifted. The horizon of his understanding had expanded infinitely. His life would never be the same, and he knew, deep in his heart, that this was a change for the better. He reflected on the days he had spent nursing Lyra, the simple, selfless act of compassion that had transformed his life and, by extension, had ripple effects across the cosmos. It was a powerful lesson that a single, genuine act of kindness, untainted by expectation or gain, could transcend species, bridge unimaginable distances, and foster understanding where only fear and ignorance had existed before. He realized that the true legacy of this encounter wasn't the advanced technology he had glimpsed, or the galactic alliances that might someday form, but the profound demonstration of empathy. It was a testament to the innate human capacity for compassion, a quality that perhaps, more than any weapon or starship, was humanity's greatest strength. His small act had sown seeds of understanding, proving that even a lone voice of kindness could resonate through the vast, indifferent silence of space, fostering connections and forging unexpected bonds between disparate species. As the sun climbed higher, casting the familiar long shadows of morning across his farm, Kale returned to his daily routine. But his actions were imbued with a new sense of purpose, a quiet understanding that he was now part of something infinitely larger than himself. The quiet hum of his homestead, once a backdrop for his solitary existence, now felt like a gentle thrum of connection, a subtle echo of the universe he was now inextricably linked to. He knew that his role in humanity's cosmic story, though humble, had been undeniably pivotal. He was the human who had sheltered an alien girl, and in doing so, had opened a door to the stars, not with force, but with kindness. His life was still simple, still rooted in the soil of Xylos Prime, but now it was also touched by the infinite, forever changed by the luminous eyes of an alien princess. He carried the weight of galactic significance with the quiet dignity of a man who simply did what was right. The immediate conflict was resolved, and Kale's world was safe, now under the benevolent, distant watch of Lyra's civilization. The discreet team, unseen but ever present, ensured that no harm would come to him or his adopted planet. Kale often found himself gazing at the night sky, a faint smile playing on his lips, knowing that somewhere out there, Lyra was thriving, and that her people remembered him. He felt a deep sense of peace, a quiet pride in the choice he had made. He had chosen compassion over fear, empathy over suspicion, and that single, defining choice had brought two disparate worlds, two vastly different species, closer than any treaty or trade agreement ever could. His homestead, once a refuge from humanity, had become a beacon for its best qualities, a monument to the unexpected power of simple kindness. His story, though known only to a select few, became a whisper in the galactic winds, a testament to humanity's capacity for empathy and courage, even in the face of the ultimate unknown. It underscored the profound truth that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology, or its expansive reach, but its boundless heart, its unwavering ability to offer aid and sanctuary when it mattered most. Kale, the solitary colonist, had shown the universe that sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who simply choose to be kind. If this extraordinary tale of Kale and Lyra touched your heart, please remember to like this video, share it with your fellow explorers of the cosmos, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and captivating stories of humanity's incredible journey among the stars. Your support helps us continue to bring these epic adventures to life. Check out our next video for another captivating adventure that will surely expand your imagination and remind you of the endless wonders out there.